So the video today is going to be about how dyslexia has affected me and how I've overcome it. We're also going to have a little look into how it affects other people, as my twin sister has also got dyslexia. So we'll have a Zoom conversation with her. So what is dyslexia? It's one of those things that's quite difficult to describe. I can only really describe it as it affects me. So dyslexia for myself, it makes it difficult for me to read and write. It slows me down. Um, my brain is about 1,000 times ahead of where I'm physically writing. It's a developmental and cognitive disability that makes it difficult for you to access the information that normally wouldn't be an issue. However, it does affect 1 in 10 people in the UK, so it's quite a prevalent and quite a common thing to have. However, the support for it, as we'll discuss, is quite rare and is quite difficult to get hold of. So the dyslexia assessment that you can get in order to get a diagnosis, it's quite a lengthy process. In order to get a full diagnosis that you have dyslexia, you have to go to either a dyslexia assessor, which is normally a teacher that's gone through further training and a study, or you go to a educational psychologist, um, and they'll perform an assessment on you that will then test you against different formats. So reading, writing being the main ones. Then it looks at your ability to interpret patterns. Then it's like a psychometric test, really, but more in depth. And then from that, they then work out whether or not you show the markers of dyslexia and then the severity of it. The main ones being your reading speed and your spelling and your handwriting, or number of words per minute you can write. Once you've had that assessment, they then publish a report, and the report can either take two forms. Either it's a report saying, yeah, okay, you have forms of dyslexia, but you're not necessarily heavily dyslexic, or you get a report that says, yes, you have dyslexia definitively, and these are the requirements that I think you should ask your school or education provider or work even for support with. So whether that being Dragon Naturally Speaking or other assistive software is being put in place for you. So the other things to look out for, so in order to work out whether either yourself is dyslexic or someone in your family might be dyslexic, the main character and like identifier markers for myself that I had was my ability to organize when I was in a young age was very, very, very poor. I didn't like change. I find it very difficult to adapt to new things. When moving from primary school to secondary school was quite a big shock for me, um, mainly because in order for me to get the support that I needed at that particular point in time, I was separated from my twin sister. So in order to get the support, I moved to a separate secondary school rather than where we were in primary, which was together. The other thing that you can see as well is that their ability um, to read would be slightly slower, and if in some cases not at all. So when you're asking them to read a book that of someone of that age should be able to read, is quite difficult for them. And then another thing is the fact that they would probably find act up, so find a way to get out of that situation. And that I feel is quite a common marker, is the fact that they all try and play up or try and get away from a situation they're finding difficult. In primary school, in particular, I didn't like English. In secondary school, I had to like English in order to get through secondary school. But um, so yeah, I would find a way to get out of it. So one of the main things I'd do was try and find a way to get to the toilet, which seems a bit ridiculous, but yeah, I would run to the toilet. Um, I would act up in class, so I got sent out. That was one of the main things that made my parents send me off for an assessment, was the fact that um, I was starting to act up, and also the fact that they knew that my dad had dyslexia. So those things were sort of like archetypal pointers to make them feel that, okay, yeah, we need to go and get Will assessed. The other thing is that I would find it difficult, particularly when I was a lot younger, to match up a puzzle. So if you can get those boxes where you can put like a star in 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 the same shape, and it like falls into the center of the box, and you've got like a moon shape and you've got stuff like that. It would take me a lot longer to do that, whereas Sarah would like fly through it and be like next. type of thing. So for myself, it was those sort of developmental side of it. It's definitely not a cookie cutter uh, disability. You can't say that this person with dyslexia is going to be exactly the same as the other person, and therefore you can develop a strategy for the one person that fits all. It's not the case. Like dyslexia ranges. Like for myself, which is quite severe dyslexia, to my sister who's got fairly moderate dyslexia. Another sign of dyslexia as well is their memory retention, because dyslexia as a whole affects your short-term memory. The issue that you've got with short-term memory for in a dyslexic is the fact that it loses bits of it. So unfortunately, in order to make sure that the retention is there, it has to go to the long-term memory, and that's where I had issues. In order to get the retention, I had to come up with methods of getting it into my long-term memory, and one of the ways at the early stages was the use of cue cards. And then latterly, I've also been using magic whiteboards, and that's where I make a poster and I use um, pictograms and memory aids on the poster in order to remember and put it into my long term memory. I also use location, so I'll put them in places that I know very well to then be able to think about it in an exam setting where I'm obviously going to be nervous. And then that allows me to remember those facts. So I will use the fact that I've got my posters up in like my living room, for instance. I'll then remember what my living room looks like and then the poster in the living room. It seems a very convoluted way of remembering something, but it works really well. I was really fortunate. I had support from primary school all the way through my education process. And that meant I was at a level playing field throughout. And it's not until someone helps you and assists you just that one little bit. The first bit of support I got was a teacher taking notes for me, or having one-to-one sessions when I was in primary school, um, helping with my spelling so I didn't feel so behind. And those kind of things just take that little bit of stress off you and then allows you to access the classes. If I didn't have the support, that would have been a lot worse. And I think if I didn't have the diagnosis, I would have been in a worse position, because I feel that the teachers would have labelled me as a problem child, and more or less written me off, type of thing, and said, "Well, okay, Will doesn't want to learn because he's just acting out. He's the class clown," type of thing. And I feel that's quite horrendous, because there could have been the fact there could be thousands of people out there that actually have dyslexia that are being told they're problem children when they're not, and they just need that little bit of extra time, that little bit of support, and then they're sorted. The other thing that affected me quite significantly was the fact that I absolutely hated change. So when I got when I had to leave primary school and go to secondary school, for the first time I was split up from my sister. It wasn't a requirement for me to go to a different school. It was just the fact that the school that wasn't the same as my sister's had the better dyslexia unit. Then when I got to secondary school, they explained to me the support that they would be giving to me. They introduced me to this dyslexia centre there, and the fact that that was open to me whenever I needed it, whether I had a session there or not. There was someone that I could go and talk to. So when I was finding it difficult or I was anxious about something, I could go there. That also allowed me to access different lessons and to attain my pass grade in English because of the support. There's obviously the next step, which is going from secondary school to college and then to university and then into the big wide world of work. And obviously the transitions from then onwards got easier and easier. So moving from secondary school to college, I had that group of friends that also went to the same college as me. So I was able to transition really easily. It was also helped the fact that the college that I went to was my local college to the school that I went to. It allowed me to feel like I knew the place because I could go on several visits, and that made the transition a lot easier. Going forwards, after that, every transition I've gone through since up to where I am now has been easier, and I've not really thought about it. In supportive technology, the main piece being the LiveScribe pen. So the LiveScribe pen looks exactly like this. It has a inbuilt microphone here, and as you write, it overlays what you've written with the recording via the use of this camera at the base here. So it means once you've finished your lectures or anything like that, and you've not written enough or you haven't quite caught up, you can tap on that sentence or the picture you might have drawn, for instance, and you'll hear exactly what your lecturer has told you. It also allows you to download it. So instead of having to lug massive books around, you can have it now on your iPad or on your mobile, and you can just click and scroll through that section and listen to exactly what the lecturer is saying and what your notes say. In order for this pen to work properly, you have to buy the paper that comes with it. You get in the box as like a starter pack, and then in the future you have to buy it. It's about the same price as a normal notepad. The only difference is the fact that the lines itself have dots, so that allows the camera to work out where your pen nib is, and then that's how it works out what you've written, and then overlays on top of that the recording. The other really quite basic piece of technology that I use is this blue piece of acetate. So it looks a bit like battered and beaten now because I've used it quite a lot. I've had this since primary school. But basically, it separates the text. So you have a small line here and then a paragraph size line at the bottom here. And what it allows me to do is to separate up the text so it doesn't feel like I'm reading such a long passage. And it also gives a blue overlay, which reduces the stress of staring at a white piece of paper. And that's another thing that goes hand in hand with dyslexia, is the fact that you can get what's called visual stress. Dragon Naturally Speaking, it allows you to talk to it and it types for you. So you put a headset on, it's directly linked to your voice. So as you talk, it knows exactly what you're saying. That itself is like really, really important piece of software for being able to write dissertations. Made writing my dissertation so simple. It also makes writing letters or emails really easy. So the other bit of supportive technology is Audible. Is in general, it has allowed me to access books that I wouldn't normally think of reading. So I've now read the entire series of Harry Potter, or listened to the entire series of Harry Potter. Beforehand, I would read them, but it would take me so long that I'd give up. And Audible has allowed me to do that, and I feel really accomplished that I have done it. Um, and I think that's one of the main improvements that's available for people with dyslexia or learning difficulties, that they can get access to mainstream books that normally would be limited because of the medium that they're in. All of those things together allowed me to become a very independent learner and student that didn't need the support that I had when I was at college. At college, I had a support teacher like I was at secondary school and at primary school with me in more or less all of my lessons. At university, you don't need that, or you don't want that particularly. So I had the LightScribe pen, which was basically my note taker, and all of the lecturers were genned up on dyslexia quite well, and they would put all of the notes on the e-learning platform, so I could read the notes before. When you find a subject that you're passionate about, like anything, it's a lot easier to learn it, and when it gets difficult, you still push through it. And I think that was the main difference. I think the other thing that was a stark difference is the sheer fact that the world as it is has advanced so much in technology. Technology has changed dramatically since I was at school to where I am now, or when I was at university. Okay, so that's enough of me talking. We're going to go downstairs now for a Zoom conversation with my sister. We're just going to have a nice little chat talking about how the pair of us have been diagnosed with dyslexia and how we both overcome it, and our individual stories. And I hope you guys enjoy it and find it interesting. This is my sister Sarah, and we've got her on Zoom. Hi. But I thought I would bring in different perspectives. So talk about how it affected you and what you went through and stuff like that.
Yeah. So they went and tested me when you got tested as well, because they were like, might as well, you're here, buy one get one free. And they tested me, and I had mild symptoms, signs of it, and so they said you're dyslexic, which it didn't affect me initially when I was younger, but it started to affect me when I got into about year 5, year 6, and I started then to lag behind everyone because they were all excelling, because they'd obviously got the ground level learning. So I could like attain the ground level learning, but then kind of going up from that, like reading wise and also maths wise as well a little bit. And also sometimes just attention. I think that was one of my other things as well, because I'm quite a creative person. So I'd much rather do something to do with history rather than something that I didn't really necessarily understand. So IT I always used to find a little bit more difficult because it was quite technical. And that wasn't necessarily, whereas with you, you're particularly good at like those problem solving puzzles, aren't you?
Yeah,
the ones that they make.
So for me, it was that it affected me more, like at the early years, it was more puzzles. And then latterly, it was more trying to decipher written word. So that was the more difficult side, like reading. And still is. Like there's still some words that I crop up that I can't read.
Yeah, but for me, like the problem solving puzzles were really weird because they'd break down any kind of barriers you had built up that you didn't even know you had, like coping mechanisms you didn't even know you had. So, but then I did all right in secondary school. So I don't know, most of my teachers in secondary school had the knowledge that I was dyslexic because I didn't get a statement, they couldn't really help in secondary school.
You didn't need a statement, did you?
No. No. So my dyslexia was quite mellow in comparison.
I mean, for you, when you like go to read something, like that's the only thing I can. But how does it affect in total? Like, what does it cause you difficulties with?
So mine is more to do with small things, so details.
Okay.
So I can read really well, but it's reading speed and reading out loud. So I read slightly slower. So like Mark, for example, he'll finish a book in like, I don't know, a day, and it will take me at least twice as long, if not more, to finish the same book that's not very difficult or anything like that. And that's because my reading speed's slower, because it takes me longer and I reread things in order to understand them. So I may be able to like read it in my head completely fine, but in order to kind of take the knowledge in, I have to reread certain things. So that's why I'm not very good at school. So for me, that's it. And also grammar, awful. I mean, I wouldn't say, no, it's not awful, but I'll put things in the wrong place.
Because I feel like the pair of us, we spell as we think it says. So we spell more like phonetically.
No, the major one for me is there, and there.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, that I can never get my head around that. That is like
You're and you're.
Yeah.
You are.
You
all of those ones. I end up, always using the wrong one in emails. So when I'm at work, I'll write you're instead of you are. On the and all that jazz. So it's small things like that. So people wouldn't necessarily notice it. In fact, in my job, people didn't know I was dyslexic. And I write for a living. But that's because I've built up my own strategies of coping with that. And I oh gosh, what's it called? Not Audible. It's an online thing, which I will remember in a minute. And basically, especially when you're typing emails on the internet, it will come up with a little green line underneath.
Oh yeah.
And it's called.
Is that Grammarly?
Grammarly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use Grammarly on my phone. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Grammarly is definitely a dyslexic hack. Yeah. If you want a dyslexic hack, get Grammarly. In fact, get Grammarly full stop, because when you're at uni or when you're doing your GCSEs or whatever like that, you're doing an essay, Grammarly will tell you how to improve it. And that's the free version. You don't need to pay for it or anything.
While you were at uni, what support did you get there? Did you get...
So I didn't get anything. Yeah, so obviously I didn't get anything through secondary school.
No.
But I did all right. So my GCSEs were fine. A-levels were difficult. They were the ones that I really struggled with.
Isn't that where you got dyslexia?
Well, yeah, spotted again.
You got re-spotted.
They somehow thought it had reversed.
Because your secondary school didn't pass it on, did they?
Yeah, so my secondary school, they did. I don't really think most of them knew I was dyslexic in secondary school because I coped so well. And that was through more luck than judgment, I think.
Yeah.
And then college, my first year I didn't really get any help, but my second and my third year in college, I did get some help.
Yeah.
Because I was ill as well. That also helped.
Yeah, you got taken ill, didn't you? So you did an extra year.
Yeah, so they gave me extra help on top of that, which kind of helped.
Yeah.
And then at uni, I got tested for free.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that was towards the middle of my first year. Because they noticed, so it had dyslexic on my file, but they didn't have any backing up evidence, so they couldn't help me.
Yeah,
And
you had no
the Dyslexic
proof.
Association, and the dyslexic unit at my uni was amazing. So woo, Westminster. And they basically they put me forward for a dyslexic assessment in Winchester.
Yeah.
One of the weirdest things I've ever done. I felt a little bit like a fraud when I went in. I was like, oh God, what happens if I go in and they say you're not dyslexic, you're just a little bit useless? So yeah, I know. So when I went in, I was quite nervous, and then they break down. I have no idea how they do it. They have some kind of magical dyslexic breaking device, and they break down all of your little coping strategies, and then you're just left with you.
Yeah.
And your basic. And I couldn't spell words that I knew how to spell, but it's because of the way they were testing. My brain was like, and you only have 30 seconds. You're like, okay, I don't know. And you start out and it's really easy. And you're like, oh, this is fine. And then they suddenly whip in like a 3D shape, and you're like,
whoa,
no.
Yeah.
And
Let's say you did this and move on.
Yes, let's not. And what was it? Oh yeah, and then they tested me for dyspraxia as well, which we both knew I had because I am clumsy. A bit of other ones as well, and apparently I have a very unusual profile. I was like, thank you, I am unusual. And so, but it came out pretty darn dyslexic, to be fair. And more dyslexic than I think like any of the family even realised. So like I sent that back to Mum, and Mum was like, I feel awful. You should have had more support when you were younger. I'm like, well, I was fine. I've got to uni now, and uni's just harder, and I need to find with essays.
This was something that I found, and this is like from having a look. Quite a lot of dyslexics are found at university. I mean, that's all well and good, but it takes a lot to get there. You can't just rock out of school and walk in. You have to go through a bit. So to wait until that point is quite long.
The thing with uni is that they have more facility to help, whereas mainstream education don't have the funding. So
this is it.
Lot of people like me fall through the cracks because
unless you have a statement which unlocks government funding, you can't get funding. It's very difficult.
And they can't provide an SEN teacher. They can't, they can't do any of it because they don't have the money. So I don't feel any kind of, upset because of the lack of help throughout my kind of early school career or anything like that. Because at the end of the day, I got there, and it was really interesting. What he said on my statement was, she's a really intelligent person to speak to, and actually given the right support, she could excel far beyond what she is now. And that's completely right. I was doing
grade, didn't you?
I nearly got a first. I was 2% off. Rude.
Yeah.
But it's not even that. It's not even about the grade. I found it easier because I'd been basically, for like an example, I'd been legging it at full pelt, Usain Bolt style, to try and get into university, and I was burning out, and I couldn't keep doing that at uni because my brain needed more time to do essays that maybe other people found easier or could do quicker, and I needed more time to go through the material just to read it. Like I did a very word heavy degree. I did history and English lit. Unwise, because it involves a lot of reading. I loved it, but that's the reason I was struggling through no fault of my own. So and also then uni started giving me a load of help and career advice and various other bits and bobs, and they gave me extensions if I needed them. and all of my teachers were made aware, so I ended up getting the PowerPoints, which is really helpful. And then you don't feel like you're any different or anything like that, or you feel like you're on the exact same, you've got a level playing field then with everyone else, because you've got that time to study it and look over it and generally take it in your own way, rather than having to be put into a box that everyone else is necessarily all right with, but you can't be put into. Because being different is good.
Well, exactly. And it also allows, because dyslexia has one of its main gifts is the fact that you're able to look at a problem in a different way, or you're looking at the world in a different way. And there's a really good book, and I think it's called The Gift of Dyslexia. I'll find out what it is. Yeah. And that's a really good one to read. Like, as a dyslexic, telling people to read it well. But I did actually read it, and it was quite interesting. And for people that think, I'm hard done by, I disagree with it, because it is a difficult thing to get your head around to start off with. But as with everything, when you put your mind to it, and when you've been given the support, and you've been given that massive key to unlock, you can get there, and it's really easy. Then, right, it's still learning, and you're still having to teach yourself it, but it's simple.
You can use it as an excuse, or you can use it as a strength.
Exactly, and it's definitely, like, I use it in interviews, and I talk about it in interviews as a strength. Like, when an interviewer says to me, what are your main strengths? And like, I've structured my interview. The first job that I went for, as a qualified engineer, he said, "Oh, what are your main strengths?" And I said, "Dyslexia." And he was like, "Okay, I've never heard that one." And I was like, "Well, it allows me to look at problems in a different way to how you would think of a problem."
Yeah, I mean, in my case, especially with the job I'm doing at the moment, I chose not to tell them because my job is so writing heavy. And it's one of those things that there's still, sadly, a segment of society that are a bit prejudiced. The one thing I would say is that anyone who's worried or wants to find out more, go to the Dyslexic Association website.
Yeah, definitely.
Learn, read up, support your child. That's the main thing. That's the reason you and I are so where we are in our lives, is because our parents were supportive, amazing, wonderful humans.
Yeah.
Because we had each other.
Yeah, exactly. That was the other thing. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So I just learn as much as you can, and then you can support your child, family member, whoever through it.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to talk about the subject. Like, particularly if you feel that you might have it. Like, if you're watching this and you're thinking, "Well, I think I might have dyslexia," don't be afraid to go and talk to your mum or your dad, or talk to a friend, and ask for help. Just say it. Like, you might be in a situation that you haven't been diagnosed. You've got yourself into a situation that you're at university, or you're at college, and you're wanting to get those support. There is tons of support out there, and that is the main thing, that it is available, so you can get it, and you have the right to get it. So go and just ask for it. I know it's easier said than done, but the hardest bit is asking the question to start off with, and find out where your support centre is.
It's the special educational needs.
Yeah.
Or how the SEN department normally.
SEN department, yeah. Like that kind of thing. Don't, just because it's got a name like special educational needs, it doesn't mean that you're different. It just means you might need more support. Like,
yeah, and also being different isn't a bad
exactly.
thing.
I think that's quite an important note, that dyslexia at any point can be found, and you can seek help. I will chat to you in a bit.
Thank you very much for having me.
That's all right. It's been cool. And see you in a bit. Bye.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you do have any questions about what we've discussed, please feel free to comment below and I'll try and help. Also, there is a fantastic website created by the Dyslexia Association out there, and they have great information, and I would suggest hitting them up and having a look. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.